don't need to worry about your scent at all.
You know, I don't worry about it as much as I do with salmon. No, I'm a chronic hand washer, you know, and with the steelhead, I don't worry about it as much. It doesn't seem to affect them. You go salmon fishing with me, man, it's black gloves, it's wash. I don't care if I got my gloves on, I'm still washing. I'm just anal with the salmon because it does matter. I have seen it affect it there. But with the steelhead, not as much. Now, if you're running eggs, yes. And that's something that, so that you guys understand the reason why with salmon fishing I'm anal like that is because salmon fishing, you're cut plugging herring, you're helmeting herring, you're handling bait, you're wrapping plugs, sardine wraps. If I grab this guy right here, right now, I am not going to transfer the amino acids out of my hand as efficiently as I am if I grab a hold of a bait, a live bait. Those will transfer over. And what it is, throwing them off is the amino acids from your hands. Now, I have really dry skin, so my amino acid output is minimal compared to most. Okay? But with eggs, if I was running eggs, side drifting, yes, I would wear gloves, just because that bait's going to transfer. But jigging, I don't worry about it. I really don't.
I have another question.
Yep.
I'm just learning to fish, and so I got a setup last year at Sportsman,
Mm-hmm.
and he sold me that Pro Line braided stuff.
Right.
He said that's the only thing to use for any kind of fishing.
I'd like to know who it was because I know all them boys and they know I hate that stuff. It's not that I
went fishing with said he hates it too. So.
The problem with it, see, the Pro Line is what you call a super line. It's a braided filament.
The big thing was you can use a smaller diameter line and get more out.
You can with that is the big thing, and that the Pro Line is no different than the Fire Line. It's the same thing. Okay, zero.
The Fire Line's not braided though, is it?
The Fire Line it is a braided, but it's not a round braid. If you look at if you went to put a braided line, if you put this Fire Line and they make a Fire Line true braid round style on a bait caster, if you put that line on a bait caster, it's not going to cast worth a darn because it's not perfectly round. Spinning reel, it flows off the harness.
I bought a baitcaster reel too, which is probably I spent half the day trying to keep it.
See the baitcaster thing, real quick on that, guys. The reason why I don't use a baitcaster, and it's a preference thing. When you cast out, the casting and everything is fine. Once you get it down, and you will learn that. Okay, once you get it down and setting up your brake and your drag and all that stuff. When you get it down, it's fine. You make your cast. But what happens is this: when you come down like this, you click the spool. And there's resistance on that so that when you cast, it doesn't bird nest. So as it's making its way down through, it's having a hard time relieving that line off the spool. So you're having to sit there all day and do this because you want a fluid drift. You don't want that make that bobber move at all. You just want it to flow. Nice and slow, you lift it up. Like if you get a little mend going with this setup here, you just kind of lift it up, place the line upstream, start shaking your rod tip again. With that level wind reel, you're having to do that. You can't shake the rod tip and spool it off. So the only option you have is to back your brake off so it free spools. Then when you go to cast it, you got to set it and throw it again. With this, you toss it out, simply shake, let it go down. You get a nice fluid drift that way.
Yeah, it would have been a lot easier to operate.
This is steelhead bobber fishing, guys, and if you're a diehard level wind, I can level wind left and right hand. I'm not saying that to brag. I do it for a living. I've gotten good at it. But when I go steelhead fishing, it's a spinning reel in my hand when I'm float fishing. If I'm side drifting with the boat, I cast my level wind out there, set it because the boat's doing the work. The boat is all it is a bobber. That's all it is, guys. Your boat is the bobber. Okay? Yes, sir?
You don't use a shrimp in the wintertime like this? I mean, this kind of...
Oh, I do use shrimp. Yes, I do. But what I do differently with the shrimp, guys, is this, and that's something that I try to get these as much information to you as I can. That's another great question. Here's what happens. If you go out with me, and a lot of times on these marabou ones, I won't use them. We have some that we tie up that are small like that jig I'm showing you, but they got mousse on them. Okay, what that mousse is a stiffer fiber. So I will use the shrimp because the oils will leach off the shrimp onto the fiber of the marabou and collapse it down. So what happens, you've got your shrimp, they look something like this. Right, and they got their legs and their shell and whatnot, right? Coontail shrimp, bait shrimp, okay? What happens here is I see guys doing it all the time. They'll take one of these huge rock dancers and they'll hook right up through here that shrimp. They got the whole shrimp on there, all right? That thing's floating down there. That steelhead's not thinking, hey, that looks like a shrimp, I should eat it. It simply smells like a shrimp. That's something they're familiar with. All this thing is a sponge to carry your scent. So what I do is I take and pinch the head off because there's nothing up in there but brains and guts. It's no good to you. Then I've got basically 2 sections left. I get rid of the tail. I've got a little tiny piece here and a little tiny piece here. And that's all I use. And when I hook it up, I run my hook through right here. So it's basically kind of straight out the back, so it's floating down through there nice. Same principle right there. All it is a sponge. You could take an earplug, cut it in half, soak it in some formula, whatever you want, hook the earplug on there. All it's doing is carrying the scent for you. You don't got to put that big old huge hunk of shrimp on there. Because you make your offering too big, you deter the fish. Keep it small, keep it finesse. Okay? Any other questions, guys?
On that rig you got set up right there, how do you know that lightweight jig is going to make it to the bottom when your weight's so high up?
With this setup right here, because what happens, remember, faster water's at the top and it slows down as it gets to the bottom. Now here's the way you tell. You got to understand to read a float. All right? If the current's going this direction here and I throw out and my bobber's going down through there like this, what does that mean? You guys know what that means? Means that my jig is too light and it's traveling in front of the bobber. I want this to go down just straight. If it's going down and it's like this, that means I've got too much jig. It's not flowing down. The jig's flowing slower than the bobber. That's how you read your float. You want that float straight up and down. When that float is straight up and down, it doesn't matter where this weight's at because this is the fastest water. It's getting slower. This isn't moving hardly much at all. That's why you tier it like that. So when that float is going down through there nice and straight and not kicking out to the front or to the back, you know you've got the right amount of weight on there. And you'll start, like I said, you'll start tapping the bottom. Okay. Other questions, guys? Got a few minutes still.
So if you're running into that problem, we have your float turning,
Mm-hmm.
you add more weight above your jig.
Well, these jigs, Timmy, come in 16th. They come in 3/32. They come in quarter. They come in eighth. The faster the water, the more weight's required down low to keep up with it. So if your jig's kicking like this and you had a 16th on there, you need to go to an eighth. Okay. If it's kicking the other way, you need to go lighter. That's what you want that bobber running straight. That's what I liked about that dual stage float that they used to make, Uncle Walt's. I still have a few of them left that I don't let nobody use. It's a little small ball on the bottom with a tall stem, and at the top of that stem, there's another little small bulb up there. And it's small. It's got a little tiny bit of weight on it. But that thing was so easy to read because I could see it tip. These ones you got to look a little more because they're only out of the water that far. You know, but I could see that thing tipping this way or that, and that told me, okay, I need to go from an eighth to a quarter or, an eighth to a 16th, depending on how it was leaning. I could read that bobber. These ones you can read, they just take you a little bit of time to see it. That's where that corky helps, because you'll see that corky kind of laying the wrong way. Okay. It's all based off speed of the water.
Under your bobber, do you ever run anything other than jigs?
You can do a double, Nate. And have you guys seen the dropper rigs? What they are is, let me see, I think I might have one in here actually. Yeah, right here. And I have tried these and it's never been a whole lot of luck for me. Where's my dropper head? Here it is. What he's talking about here, guys. I think Arrow Jig makes these if I remember correct. Okay, what you've got here, this one's got some line tied on it. But what you got, see how that jig head's got two eyes on it? You got one here, and then you got one here. This is what they call a candy dropper. And what you would put on this is basically just looks like a yarn setup when you're side drifting. You would run off of this 8 to 10 inches, 12 inches or whatever. You would tie on a size 2 or a size 1 red octopus hook down here, then you've got this guy up here. And basically what happens is this is traveling down like this, and this thing's kind of kicking beside it. Where I say this I don't like is I've kind of based my business on the drop shot technique, fishing for bass and walleye and stuff. And I've tried numerous times to tie a jig on the bottom of that drop shot and have my bait suspended up here with a jig down low, which is basically the same thing, and I will not catch as many fish as just having the one offering. What I think tends to happen is you get confusion going on. There's too much stuff going on. It takes away from the finesse of it. Okay, make it simple, keep it small, less stuff, the better it is. So that's my take on it. I've tried them, Nate, several times, and I've just never had that much luck with it. Any other questions, guys? All good?
So you don't change the weight, your upper weight, you don't change that?
No, because that's based on what the float requires. See, this guy here, this is 3/8, and the way this is set up, I got 3/8 here, and then I got an 1/8 down there. So what's the math on that, 1/2 ounce? Well, I got a 1/2 ounce float. So if it's kicking out, if I overweight this thing here, and say it's tipping on you and you can't correct it and you're having to add more weight, you're going to have to go from the 1/2 ounce version to the 3/4 version. Then you're going to increase this weight, and you're going to increase this weight. You're going to go 1/2 ounce here, 1/4 ounce there, if you're having a problem correcting it with the bottom. Now you can overweight this, that's an 1/8 ounce. I could go, even though it's going to be over, I can run a 1/4 ounce jig down there with this. Even though I've overweighted the float, it's still going to float it. Okay? But if it's moving faster, the faster the water, the more current you have, you're going to have to go with a bigger float, which enables you to do more weight here, more weight down there. Okay?
What kind of floats are those?
Those are West Coast floats. Yep. They come in 1/2, 3/4, and 1 ounce, I believe. Okay? Any questions, guys? Good to go? All right. Thanks for coming out, guys. If you want to come to any other seminars, you can go out and get a pass. You can come back at any time during the week.
Yeah, that guy's right here at the table right next to us.
Yeah.
He stopped me.
Yep, Scott. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.